Good morning, viewers, and welcome to Market Review, where we look at developments in the financial and capital market as it affects the economy. In the last week, we saw unprecedented attacks on critical infrastructure and businesses and institutions across the country, with Lagos, the epicenter of the NSAS protests, also getting the worst hit of the violence, which can be attributed to hoodlums and other elements who took advantage of that protest to unleash what has been described as an unprecedented level of carnage in Lagos particularly, and other cities in the country. Lagos, as we know, is Nigeria's economic capital, and apart from that, is the capital market hub, home to over 60% of listed companies in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. Today, we'll be looking at the impact of the October 2020 violence on Lagos, Nigeria's capital market hub. What are the prospects? What can we learn from here and build up to improve this environment? With me to lead this conversation is Mr. Johnson Chukwu, Group Managing Director, Cowry Asset Management. Good morning and nice to have you, Mr. Johnson Chukwu.
Good morning, Ottoabasi. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And to our viewers, just to give you a wrap-up of the equities markets last week, Friday, it closed on a positive as Nigeria Stock Exchange All-Share Index appreciated by plus 0.47% to close at 28,697.06 basis points, as against plus 0.40% appreciation recorded previously. Its year-to-date returns currently stands at plus 6.91%. Mr. Johnson Chukwu, nice to have you once again, and just to get your view on this carnage. I mean, you've been in Lagos, you're in the capital market hub. Have you experienced this ever since you reside in Lagos?
Yes, I've seen this. I think that was 1989 during the structural adjustment program riots. Yeah. It may not be as pervasive as this particular instance was. At that time, Lagos was still the capital of Nigeria. The place had not moved to Abuja. The second period was during the efforts to revalidate the Moshood Abiola presidential election. So we actually had an extended period of civil unrest at that time. But again, it was largely restricted to Southwest. But what we saw last week was almost national. I was almost in all parts of the country. In fact, we've seen that even as of yesterday, we saw some states that we thought had escaped the crisis come under attack by hoodlums and citizens who were looking for food. So in any case, we've seen similar civil unrest or civil strife before, but I think this might be of greater magnitude. Again, this also drew international attention faster than even the June 12th effort to revalidate the election of Moshood Abiola. Because right from the point when the young youths started their campaign, it drew international attention. So I think this is quite more pervasive and has more created more awareness than the previous instances.
And let's first begin with the impact of the escalation of the violence on the Nigerian capital market. Let's look at the equities. I mean, the equities, like we said, closed on a positive. The NSCSI appreciated by plus 0.47% to close at 28,697.06 basis points. The market breadth closed positive. NASCON led 20 gainers as against 6 losers. It showed an improved performance when compared with previous outlook. So amidst the tensions, it seems the market still closed positive. It didn't really affect the market, did it?
I would say it didn't really affect the market. It affected the market the next day after the shooting of the protesters. I mean, if you observe, the market was negative on Wednesday, but strong on Thursday and So we saw market rally on Thursday and Friday. So which means the market kind of struggling. But then it's also affected other segments of the capital market. If you look at the Eurobond segment of the market, you will see an expansion in yield. Probably what we are witnessing is that because foreign investors are stronger in Eurobonds, that's their preference. So you've seen a withdrawal or a sell down by foreign investors of Eurobond. But for the local currency equity market, you observe that the dominant players today are the major fund managers, like the pension fund administrators. And because the yield in equities is materially higher than fixed income yields, particularly local currency fixed income yields, investors have no choice than to continue to put on the equities market. They are not going to keep their monies in the banks. They would rather have the monies put in some earning assets, which are the equities instruments represent. So I think what has happened is that local investors have sustained their confidence that this will not degenerate into a major civil unrest. And again, local investors do not have many alternatives that they can put their funds in. But for foreign investors who are strong in Eurobonds, we've seen sell down, we've seen expansion in yield in Eurobond, which means the crisis has affected the Eurobond segment of the market.
Okay.
And then how does this impact the perspective of domestic and foreign investors on Lagos? You know, Lagos is the epicenter of financial and capital market activities. Over 60% of the listed companies, like I said earlier, their head offices are in Lagos. Some of the financial market players listed on the exchange had their offices burnt in the course of the violence and all that. How is this affecting their perception now of Lagos, particularly with this carnage?
I think what is happening today is that we need to reappraise the risk assessment, or the notion that Lagos has remained an oasis of peace and stability in the country. And people have now realized that that bridge could be breached. So that will put some pressures on the government to restore that level of confidence. Investors and business operators are also going to review their contingency plan, their risk management plans. Some of them may now need that do not have off-site operational locations where they can run their businesses independent of Lagos, may now have to consider that. I know a couple of banks that couldn't do much because their head offices were shut down. But for those who have off-site operational contingency arrangements outside Lagos, many of them continued some level of skeletal services. But it simply means that as business operator, we have to review our entire risk management framework and consider the fact it's also possible that Lagos could be subject to some level of civil instability and that our businesses shouldn't shut down. In any case, we have an elevated risk or what they call social risk around Lagos, and not just Lagos, virtual other parts of the country. You are going to see that even rating agencies are going to be reappraising our business outlook, because where there's political instability, your sovereign risk rating will certainly be affected. And nobody is sure that the issues have now been fully rested. Until those issues are fully rested, there's still concern that you could have sparks of unrest here and there.
Mr. Johnson Chukwu, looking at some of the investments, which are what we call public-private partnerships, vehicles for attracting FDIs and even FPIs. We saw what happened at the Lekki Toll Plaza, was burnt down. We saw attacks on some various hospitality industries and various other ventures. When we look at that, Lagos is a template for achieving PPPs and vehicles like that, which also tie into the financial and capital market. Do you think at this point it brings to the fore the role of the nexus between security and investments again into play, and how investors would take that seriously, like they would take risk management now, learning from this experience, and the issue of security for investments in Nigeria, particularly Lagos?
Yes, my take is that any savvy business operator or investor, we have to review, like I said earlier, the risk management plans or strategies. And that will include, I expect that even small and medium scale operators will also include insurance as now integral part of the risk management arrangements. As we saw the destruction of public and private properties, um, I believe a number of those property that belong to small and medium scale enterprises may not have been insured, which means what those guys did was self-insurance, and this will crystallize in their balance sheet. And some of them may not have the wherewithal to resume businesses without support. I'm happy to hear that Lagos State government is reaching out to micro, small, and medium scale entrepreneurs whose business are adversely affected, and asking them to approach the government for support. That will go a long way to moderate the impact of this crisis we just witnessed last week. But as a business leader, I've always taken insurance seriously, and I think it's high time that Nigerians learn to pass on the risk of some of their business operations to third parties who can manage the risk. I mean, it simply means what you're doing is aggregation of risk, and should yours crystallize, the insurance company will be in a position to indemnify you. That must be one of the lessons that business operators will learn from this recent development.
Yeah, I mean,
because our prior conversation this morning was around insurance. It's nice to know that businesses like you take insurance seriously. But how important is stability, particularly political economic stability for the markets? And we're looking at this, we had curfews, of course, it really affected the markets, business operations. They have to, like you say, contingency plans. How important, particularly the actions of the president down to the National Assembly and governors, how critical is it in this time to bring some level of stability and, like you said, boost confidence for the investors in the market?
I think the president must take it as a matter of priority. For me, we've seen countries unravel as a result of issues that started in this nature. We know what happened in the North African countries under the Arab Spring. We know how where Syria is today. And once you cannot manage to maintain political stability, you really cannot expect to have investors come to you. I don't imagine what kind of incentive you give to an investor that will go and want to go and invest in Libya today or invest in Syria. So the government at all levels must take it as a matter of priority to do whatever is needed to assuage the agitations of these young people and ensure that we restore stability in the environment. I think it's going to go beyond the use of force. We need to win the hearts of the young people. We need to attend to some of the issues that they're demanding for. And for me, some of those demands look legitimate. I mean, my take is that the NSAS issue was a trigger point, but there are so many factors that are impacting and negatively on the youth. One of it is high level of unemployment. If you look at the youth unemployment, for those people within the ages of 15 and 34, the unemployment rate is 34.9%, added to unemployment rate of 28.2%. So among the youth, you have 63% of them either unemployed or underemployed. That is too huge, that for us to expect that you're not going to see a rub-off in the social space. So we need to address that. We need to build an economic environment that creates jobs and create opportunities for young people to express themselves. If we don't address that, we are only delaying or postponing the evil. I think it's very critical. We need to focus on those things if we must address this problem conclusively.
And based on this development, what do you think are the learning points for the Nigerian capital market community? Because definitely what happens in the Lagos community affects every business, particularly the capital market community. What do you think are the learning points beyond reviewing the risk management, the insurance? What additional learning points are there going forward?
No, that we say the capital market development measures the outlook of the society, whether you have positive outlook or negative outlook. Those things manifest in buy or sell decisions of investors. So the key thing for me as market operators is that we must, as business leaders, as business operators, as industrial operators, continue to support the government with appropriate advice, appropriate opinions on some of the areas we think the government needs to modify their policies or introduce new policies that will ensure stability in the macroeconomic environment, in the socio-political environment. Those are factors that we need to have stability in our own market. Because without stability in the political environment, without stability in the macroeconomic environment, you cannot have vibrant and sustained activities in the capital market.
Of efforts in terms of supporting the COVID initiative, SEC driving that. Do you see that happening in terms of supporting the rebuilding of Lagos? House Speaker Honorable Femi Gbajabamila was talking about almost ₦1 trillion plus to rebuild the whole Carnage in Lagos. The capital market community definitely would have to be involved in seeing how they can support in that rebuilding effort. Do you see that commitment coming, that mobilization?
I believe that the capital market community and the Lagos State government and look at some of those losses that can be funded, the implement asset could be funded from the capital market. Take for example the vehicle that we have bought, the television stations, the newspapers. These are some assets that have earnings capacity and that can come to the capital market to refinance their resumption of operations or restoration of those assets. I believe the capital market is going to present a lot of opportunities to support the government. ₦1 trillion is not a small amount. Private assets, in nature like the transport infrastructure, can come to the capital market. I also expect that operators should take advantage of this, the market as it is today, because the market is awash with liquidity, which is why we also saw the market rally even in spite of the crisis we had. So that liquidity is looking for outlets affected.
Bus rapid transportation in Lagos, they did some bond listing on the capital market, particularly faced with the Carnage and all that. How does that play out for them in the market?
You know, that capital was really done prior. Vehicles will be subject to
yes,
asset attack. But having raised that money, it simply means that they may have a war chest that can be deployed. It might give them, you may see they have a short lead time to restore normalcy in their business, unlike those who are going to start scouting for funding or even start conceptualizing how to raise funding. So in effect, they actually went ahead of time to prepare as it were for the calamity that fell them, though they did not know such thing was coming.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
And in terms of leadership, you know that the governor of Lagos has done a lot. What would you like to see him do more, particularly ensuring that this stability is sustained in Lagos? Everything around the curfew now, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. for now, and additional measures. What would you like him to do more to ensure that this place, this city, the capital market hub of Nigeria is secured and that every interest is captured and we still run that inclusive economy which Lagos has enjoyed over the years?
Well, Ottoabasi, I think my take is that it's difficult to add to what the governor is doing. The governor has done extremely well. He has provided leadership. He has gone around, visited most of the affected areas. He's engaging those who suffered losses. He has already set up funding and making arrangements to reach out to them and provide some level of financial support to those people. What he now needs to do is to get the presidency to do the heavy lifting. And that heavy lifting will come from the presidency, addressing some of the issues that we are the reasons for the agitation. Some of them go beyond what the state government will do. Some of them are at the realm of restructuring the political and economic system of the country. Some of them are involve some level of things that the Independent National Electoral Commission will have to do. Some will involve amendment to the Constitution. Those are not within the realms of the state government. So what I expect the governor to also do is, like I said, we need to find enduring solutions to the issues that trigger these demonstrations. So for him to go back to the president and present those agitation points of agitation, and then the president to review them and see the ones that are implementable, and then let's start implementing them. That's the only way we can be assured that this will not come up again. If you do not address those cosmetic factors, then we are only deferring the doomsday, which I believe the governor cannot do all that he's doing today and fail to ensure that we have a society, an economic environment and system that will ensure that every person has equal access to economic activities and economic engagement, that people can get jobs and people can earn their living from their own sweat and not necessarily from handouts coming from the federal government or anybody.
Yeah.
So in the period of last week, while this carnage was going on, the Security and Exchange Commission came out with a very key statement around the registration of capital market operators, talking about the like top 3 of them, MD CEOs of capital market operators who present sponsored individuals before the registration committee for interview will be required to provide a detailed brief about their companies, highlighting the contribution of the companies to the development of the Nigerian capital market. Issues like all registered sponsored individuals seeking to transfer their registration to the proposed capital market operator would henceforth be required to undertake a fresh interview, as against the current practice where they are granted an exemption. And the last, with effect from January 2021, the pre-registration examinations for intending capital market operators conducted by the Nigerian Capital Market Institute would include essay questions. What are your thoughts on these new requirements for registration of CMOs?
I think what those requirements are the SEC wants to upscale the quality of the competencies of market operators. For instance, if the CEO of a capital market operator has to make a presentation on the contributions of that CMO, capital market operator, to the capital market, simply means they're going to gauge also, in effect, that CEO is also under observation or being interviewed. Because if the CEO cannot present clearly what that organization is doing, the capital market regulator, that capital market may doubt or question the capacity of the CEO to run such entity. Again, the issue of introducing interviews for those who are transferring from one CMO to another is also to make sure that the staff or the operator still has market relevant knowledge. You know, sometimes you find out that you've been in an industry for donkey years and you become archaic. I mean, your skill level becomes irrelevant to market situations. So I think that's one of the reasons why they're introducing that. The basic thing in summary is that they want to upscale the competence level of market operators. So as for us to have a market that can compete favorably with every other capital market in the world.
And finally, what are your closing thoughts on this whole development?
Of last week, the October 2020 violence impact on Lagos capital market hub, and the need to once again regain the confidence of investors, domestic, foreign, and even the ones we've always trying to get, the retail investors.
My thought is basically that it has become obvious to everybody that we cannot ignore any segment of the society, particularly of the populace. We need to turn our greatest asset, which is the human capital, the young, able-bodied people. Today, people aged between 15 and 39 account for 40% of the population. Another burden and large group of our population is those between the age of 0 and 14, which account for 42% of our population. So in effect, the very young people account for about 82% of our population. We must develop policies that are focused on addressing their needs and creating opportunities for them. That's the only way we can have stability in our market. That's the only way we have stability in our society. And that's the only way we can have a prosperous country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. It was really nice.
This conversation looking at the impacts of the October 2020 violence on Lagos, Nigeria's capital market hub, and just want you to continue to keep safe, and we hope that things get back to normal as we continue to observe the relaxed curfew in Lagos State and various other parts of the country where governors have imposed some level of curfew. Thank you once again for the time.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yes. That's Mr. Johnson Chukwu, Group Managing Director, Cowry Asset Management, speaking today on the impact of the October 2020 violence on the Nigerian capital market hub, Lagos. Lagos was the epicenter of this. We know other parts of the country experienced this, but Lagos was the epicenter, looking at how it will help to rework and boost investor confidence, because whatever happens in Lagos, Nigeria's capital market hub, has a ripple effect on the entire economy, and we hope things stabilize. You can join this conversation and follow us on our website, www.prochange.com, to get more details around the markets, developments, and particularly this period, what's really happening across the nation. Log on to www.prochange.com. You get all those facts and information, and of course, the videos that we have covering the market. Also, you can send your comments around the impact of this violence on the markets to news@prochange.com, and we would be glad to give you further insights on it and respond appropriately. You can also follow Mr. Johnson Chukwu. He's on Twitter. He's still young at heart. He's on social media at Johnson Chukwu. At the end is E. Johnson Chukwu. Chukwu, Chukwe. So Johnson Chukwu. That's the Twitter handle to get further follow what is happening on the markets too. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.